Greetings, my name's Guy Dauncey, and this is the show Change the World, where for half an hour we spend our time involved in a future vision that's positive and exciting and uplifting and visionary, as opposed to moaning and groaning and just complaining about the world, because that never gets us anywhere. So I like to invite guests on the show who are part of what I believe is a visionary approach to the future. My guest today is Ana Maria Peredo, who's a professor of political ecology at the University of Victoria in the School of Environmental Studies. And prior to that, you were at the Gustavson School of Business.
That's
and
right.
Director of the UVic Center for a Cooperative and Community-Based Economy. And you have a background in anthropology in the Andes in your native Peru.
That's right.
When did you leave Peru to come to Canada?
Well, I left Peru in 1992.
Okay.
Time goes very, very fast.
Yes.
And was a difficult time for Peru at that time because, of course, there was Shiny Pad and there is Fujimori closing the Congress and so on.
So the Shiny Pad, they're the Maoist guerrillas.
The Maoist
Yes.
guerrillas. And of course, I work with indigenous people prior to that. And so the situation was a little bit difficult. So I just came for the summer. And still I'm here.
Wow, okay. Well, that's, I myself came in 1990, so we've been here about the same kind of length of time.
Yeah.
And what got you involved from moving from anthropology to social business and political ecology?
Well, one of the things is, in Peru I work a lot with indigenous people.
Yes.
I work in international development. And one of the things that with international development that happened to me is that I always feel good about doing things, but there was something that we didn't really touch on. We did programs, microcredit programs, all kind of things, but everything was coming in without looking what is there. And of course, being in the Andes, I was fascinated. But
yes.
you know, there is a lot of poverty, but I was fascinated by the richness of the culture, the social systems, and so on. And I always keep saying to my colleagues in international development, why we don't think what they are doing and start from there?
Yes.
So the question for me always become, there are richness there that we don't see it. We always bring stuff, right? And I think that's a big problem.
With the indigenous people in Peru, they're the First Nations of Peru, right?
Yes, Quechua, Aymaras.
Yes, so they were, let me put this to you, they've been crushed, first of all, by the Spanish coming in and conquering.
That's right.
Secondly, they've been crushed by their language being sidelined, and thirdly, crushed by the modern economy coming in and turning everything into money.
That's true, but at the same time, because it's a poor country, you have international development coming in with all these ideas and so on, right? Very poor consultation in many cases, and even if people have good intentions. But the question here is that we have indigenous people there, the kind of assimilation processes that we see here in Canada.
They don't
because,
have them.
No, because why? Because it's a poor country.
Yes.
So since it's a poor country, people have to depend on each other. So people have to build things, for example. And that's where I start my work, thinking about all the things I have seen over the years. When I came here and I started studying business, I have a PhD in business, right? I started thinking, all the things I'm studying on entrepreneurship doesn't apply to what is happening. All this individualistic, all this homo economicus doesn't apply. And so because I have seen in these communities, and I went back and did a field work 1 year, backpacking, going communities to communities after the war, with Shiny Pad and all that, and I saw how communities are coming together, building their life, using the traditions, using the reciprocity, using other kind of currencies to build their lives after war, building enterprises, what I call community-based enterprises.
So let me put a framework to you to understand the economy. The way my research tells me, every economy in the world consists of three kinds of economy. You've got a social economy, which is fundamentally cooperative and using gifts and reciprocal kindness. You have a market economy when you trade things for money, and you have a war economy when you're being violent and taking slaves or stealing or doing what you want. And so do the Aymara people and the other First Nations have more of a stronger social economy, or do they have a market economy before the Spanish arrived?
You have a social economy, but I think with the word economy, we have to be very, very careful.
Okay.
Because when we think about economy, it's very narrow view, right? When people think about the economy, it's like the machine. Oh, we cannot do anything.
Yes.
It's a machine that have some natural laws, right? And people just feel like they cannot
feel
do
disempowered,
something.
right.
Exactly.
Yes.
So what we see here is that we start thinking, and we need to think about, let's take the economy back. So what I learned in the 90s, in the 80s, was there is other ways to understand the economy. And in fact, now I talk about provisioning. And when we think about our own lives, everyday life, we receive gifts. We have so much of. So the economy, as we conceive as things like exchange in the market, is only a little
Give an example
part.
of, you say we're receiving gifts through provisioning. Give an example.
We receive provisioning, our own lives, our own parents.
Yes.
And now everything goes through the market, right?
Yeah, true.
Right? And when I see, for example, these communities in Peru, or when I see communities here, there is a lot of barter, there is a lot of gift economy, there is a lot of reciprocity happening.
Yes.
Right? People is not almost homo economicus, and there is a collective action happening.
So that term you just used, homo economicus, I believe was developed by modern Western economists to represent a human who only thinks in rational, self-interested, selfish ways.
Exactly.
Right? And
exactly.
that I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, within most conventional economics is the main assumption of how we all are supposed to behave, right?
Exactly.
But it's
exactly.
nonsense. We don't behave. It's
exactly.
not true.
But also we live in society.
Yes.
We are human beings. We are social human beings.
Do you think we are more, is being a social being more important than being an economic being, or vice versa?
I think is one of the things that what is important now, and we are looking more at social economy, and we're talking about these things, is because we are, the economy having disembedded, disengaged from economic, from cultural, social, political consideration. So suddenly, we cannot dream of what we want as a human beings. We say, oh, the economy and period. Right? But now we are dreaming, and many people around the world are dreaming, and they're saying, well, we're taking back the economy, and let's think about what we want and what dreams we have as a human beings. We want affordable housing, we want food, we want all those things, right? And we are taking that back.
Do you think economics is a science, or is it politics masquerading as science?
I think that the economic lost their way, because if you see even Adam Smith, right? Adam Smith, people read about Adam Smith and everything is like Adam Smith, right?
Adam Smith.
Right?
Yes.
And the thing is that, I think economic loss is way become only a science of some kind of thing that go Nobel Prizes and so on. Only one part of the economy, whenever we see is exchange, labor for wages and so on. But we lost all the sense of provision and all the ways in which we produce and redistribute things.
Well, we've also, modern economics doesn't have any understanding of the environment or ecology. There's just what they call an externality. Oh, there's some damage, but if you cut the forest down, they say you make more money than if you leave it standing.
That's right.
Which is like kind of crazy, because you're not measuring the other values the forest brings.
That's right. And I think that's the part that we just need to, again, embed the economy, engage the economy, bring back the economy was there into these social, cultural, and ecological systems, because the economy alone cannot be there. So it's killing us, actually.
Yeah, so one of the key thinkers in this, which I know you've done some reading about, is the man Karl Polanyi. Was he Austrian or German or
Polanyi was
Hungarian.
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 Yeah, no.
And he was a big philosopher about the critique of the market. What is Polanyi saying about our economy?
Well, Polanyi is interesting. People start looking now at Polanyi because his work is so important. So what he's saying is basically, he reminds us that the markets always have existed with us.
Yes.
But what he says, and he has this book, and the Great Transformation, 1944, that he said, well, markets always have been with us, but market systems are different.
Okay.
What we have now
So the market means we'll trade and we'll exchange.
we always trade.
But a market system
is different, because with market system, what we have done, market system needs a commodification of things.
Right.
So land, parcels of land have modified.
So now someone owns it and you've got to pay
Someone
for it.
owns it, right? Labor, human beings have been commodified labor, right?
Yes.
And so
you
we
can
have.
only work if you paid wages and.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. So we have commodified money too. So it used to be a system
Yes.
to allow things. Now there is money, and so he talks about these fictitious commodities that weren't created
You're right.
actually for producing more money. He also talks about these differences between value exchange and use value. And I think that's what it is so important to think about now.
Tell me, explain value exchange, and viewers, please stay with us here because this comes right back to how we build the economy of the future. Value exchange and use value.
Okay, so let me give you an example. So use value is things that we use. Yes, utility.
Yes.
Water.
Yes.
Right?
Which
But
we need water.
We need water.
Yes.
Yeah, right? Exchange value is something that we just goes and
a great example. We went to see the play at the Langham Court Theatre in Victoria called You're in Town.
Yeah.
Premised on the fact that you have to pay to pee.
Oh my
God.
God.
And if you pee in public, you're taken away to prison, and otherwise you've got to pay. So that's extreme commodification of peeing, right?
Well, actually, more than peeing is happening here with the housing.
Well, housing is so fundamental.
Housing
yes.
have gone for something that is use value, something that is a home, is a place that we,
yes.
is a place, is a roof, is security, is warm, into a commodity.
Right.
It's a exchange value.
So let's stay with
speculation.
housing then. So the market system is basically taking over housing, which we should all have a fundamental right to. What would an alternative model for housing look like in a new economy?
Well, I think it's happening. When we talk about the new economies, new and all, because some of these have existed for years.
Yes.
Right? So housing, community land trust, co-op housing is happening.
So pause a minute. What is a community land trust? Explain it to the viewers, right?
So community land trust is happening here.
Yes.
Okay, having a practice for years, but now we are seeing more and more in the last years, especially with these crises.
Yes.
So what we are seeing is people coming together, right? Different groups coming together. In this case, for example, we have one in Vancouver right now that is being built.
Yes.
Right, 358 houses. So the main idea is that what is the most expensive part of the housing? Land.
The land. Yes.
Right. That's a huge speculation
Yes.
there. So basically, group of people, in this case having three, in Vancouver I know there are three not-for-profits, it's BC Housing Federation, BC Co-op, Van City and others to help out. So they take the land out of the equation, build houses for renter or for buy in a lease for 90 years.
So the land is no longer on the market?
The land is no longer in the market.
So the land is now in the social realm and not the market realm?
Exactly. In that way, you can make affordable housing.
Yes.
Right? And it's happening in
and no one can speculate on it
No
anymore.
one can speculate. There are rules.
Right.
Right? So in that way, again, going back to Polanyi, Karl Polanyi would say, what we are seeing through this is the commodification of the land.
And the word commodification means basically turning something into a commodity you have to buy and sell?
Exactly.
Okay.
And now it's bringing it back to peoples, right?
Because I remember I lived in Senegal for a while, in a village in southern Senegal, which was a simple tribe of people, and they'd been living that way for thousands of years. And they just built the houses for themselves, and there was no concept of owning the house or owning the land.
I know.
Technically, the government owned all the land, and there was no concept of not having a house, because you just built another one when you needed to.
Yeah.
Now, in our highly sophisticated culture, we have people living on the streets, sleeping on the streets, sleeping on couches, struggling to find a home. Something's failing in a big way.
Absolutely, absolutely. When I go home, because I still do work.
Yes,
I feel work in Peru.
Yes.
And I go to this village. I take newspapers. I take magazines.
Yes.
people just always want to know what is life here.
Yes.
And we talk about, and they immediately realize, well, who are these people? Why they are in the streets? Why they are sleeping in the streets?
Yes.
And people cannot believe that
Yes.
a rich country and a rich area
Yes.
like Victoria have homeless,
Right.
have people
Yeah,
that don't have
it
home.
is hard to believe.
So people always say to me, Ana Maria, here we are very poor,
Yes.
right? But everyone has a house. We go and build a
Yeah.
house together for someone, a new family, a new,
Right.
you know?
So if I'm right, there was a story in the paper today that actually the humans first left Africa as long as 200,000 years ago. So let's assume we've been modern humans, for 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 years, and all that time we lived in community, surrounded by social relationships that we trusted.
That's right.
And the word loneliness didn't come into the vocabulary. Is the market system destroying our social wealth?
I think it is. I think it is. And it is why people all over the world, not only in Peru, not only in Senegal,
Yes.
not only in Vancouver, Victoria,
Yes.
people everywhere is now, because their needs are not being met,
Right.
because there are loneliness and we're facing a lot of problems,
Yes.
right? People are coming together and being innovative in building different kind of
Right.
activities and different kind of based in solidarity, based in cooperation and trust.
Yeah, but whenever I hear of a politician talking about economics, they're advised by a trained economist who are finding ways to make the market more efficient and have more market system, not less.
Yeah.
So how do we change economics itself to bring the social realm back into the center of life?
I think that there need to be a cultural shift.
Right.
Every time, we read a lot about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Entrepreneurship is important. Everyone says,
Yes. And
we need to bring entrepreneurship to
starting businesses and being
exactly.
enterprising.
But our sense of entrepreneurship, I wrote a paper on this actually about the cultural captivity. It's very much in this very Eurocentric, mainstream, narrow view of what the economy is about.
Right.
So our politicians need to start looking at community entrepreneurship. Communities
Yes.
can be and are entrepreneurs.
Yes.
And,
So in the old-fashioned way of thinking about it, you're an entrepreneur, you start a business, you're making money for yourself, you're employing people, and it's your personal money, and you're successful, you made all this money, right?
yeah,
And the community, that's nothing to do with it at all.
that's right.
So in the new, what is a community enterprise? You're bringing these two concepts together. What does it look like in practice?
I think in practice looks like, people take control over their own lives.
Yes.
That means inclusion. That means that no one gets one person will rich, but everyone distribute, everyone
Right.
works, and there are different rules.
Yes.
Right? That means that also that you can incorporate ecological considerations because
Right.
people is sense of place,
Yes.
is local, right? Is multiplying effects for what they do,
Yes.
right? So that means building community,
Right.
building different things. It's no one person getting all the money and
Right. Does that community enterprise or social enterprise still, if it doesn't, it needs to make a profit? Because if it doesn't make a profit, it's making a loss and someone's losing. How does that work?
Well, in the case of the community enterprises, there are a range of things that they do.
Yes.
Right? Lots of things. We have souk, for example, here in my part of the world, we have different communities doing
Mention
different
souk.
things.
What's happening in souk for community
Souk, for example, they are building food, they are creating food, they are restoring food systems,
Right.
they are doing the solar panels,
Yes.
right? They are making money with the solar panels, saving money,
Yes.
training people.
Is this the Souk First Nation we're talking
The
about?
Souk
The
First
Souk
Nations,
yes.
right?
Yes.
In my part of the world, they are doing different things. Markets, they are renting little spaces
Right.
for creating income, for creating
Yes.
social capacity. Schools, building schools, food security
Yes.
for people, doing all kind of different
How
things.
do they, if you have, say, 10 or 15 people working in a social enterprise, how do the power relationships work? Because normally in a business, one person's the boss and he can fire people. So is it fully democratic and cooperative, or is it sometimes less?
Well, depends. There are different kinds of community social enterprises, right? But normally what you have is a more horizontal. You don't have a hierarchy, you don't have this big difference of salaries, same thing that the co-ops, right?
Yes.
So you don't have this, it's a more horizontal kind of leadership, horizontal types, and people participate. This is very important in all of the kind of community social enterprises, community-based economy. People participate, and so that's what we call economic democracy. People participate in the decision.
So one of
now, sometimes can be delegated, right? And
well,
people
that sounds
discuss.
important, because I was reading an article recently about the quality of modern unemployment and jobs, and they were saying unemployment is falling at the moment, but the quality of jobs is falling. So there's an official term, crap jobs, and one of the terms was that 47% of all people in Britain say the work I'm doing is meaningless. It's contributing nothing, and I feel lousy, but I have to do it to get pay.
Yeah.
But in a community enterprise, you're saying people have more autonomy, they're contributing.
Yeah. One of the interesting cases in talking about how people not only have access to income, but also how they change their lives and how they see themselves as a human beings is the case of Argentina, right? Argentina have a huge crisis. Neoliberalism programs fail.
They went bankrupt and they lost their debts and stuff like that.
Exactly, and the workers took the factories. Now, when you read about them or you interview some of them, they are saying, I feel now, before I used to come and work. Right?
Just a Monday morning job, do the work.
That's right, and I don't know what happened with the other people, I just do the work. Right? But now, I feel I'm a person. I feel that I care about the other person. Right? I feel that, and they are not only that, they are inviting community. They are using the spaces to do movies and nights and to do other kind of things, health, art, in their factories.
They're moving from a social emptiness to a social richness.
Exactly.
That's really important.
So the whole thing is about, rebuilding the community, putting economy in the systems again, right? Contextualizing.
So let me change gear a tiny bit. How does a community enterprise find its finance? How do banking and finance work in more of a community economy?
Depends on of the community, because that's a variety. One of the biggest challenges, for example, from government perspective, from policy perspective, for finance, taxation system, in many countries is not recognized. Community is not recognized as an enterprise. Now, things are changing, right? We have here now the community corporation, the hybrid. We start recognizing that. And but normally people use their own resources, right? But I think also what we are seeing is a whole ecosystem developing, right? Here in BC, we have credit unions and we have Van City and we have all kind of things.
A credit union, just to explain to our viewers, it's a bank.
It's like a bank.
But it's owned by its members?
Owned by his members and decision making by his members.
So no one is taking 10% profit and sending it to New York?
No, no. And I think that's important to say, that the money stays here. It's the sense of
Which
place
means that
and
the money
locality.
stays circulating locally.
Exactly. And that creates real wealth, right?
Right.
That going somewhere, you buy something, big stores, go somewhere in the headquarters of this.
So if people are thinking, well, can I establish affordable housing projects with a community land trust financed by community finance? That's possible?
That's happening.
That's happening.
Happening in Vancouver.
Right.
This happening now. 358 houses are being built. Van City is a big funder of that. There are other organizations, others leader organizations that have been dreaming about serving their not-for-profits, serving their members, and they have been saving money, and now they are putting efforts together.
So you're working at UVic now as a professor.
That's right.
Do you have any contact with the economics department, and do they listen to what you're saying, or do they think it's rubbish?
No, I don't have much contact. I talk with friends. One of the things that I'm very much interested in the last years is this idea of limits, the growth.
Limits to growth.
Right. So I'm very interested in thinking about different ways. I think we have so many different models emerging now.
Yes.
Right? Digital commons, networks of open source, and different
Yes.
ways that are really challenging traditional ways of business, traditional way of economics. And I think with, the limits to growth and the realization that we have limited resources,
Yeah.
that we need to work differently.
Yeah, so we only have 2 minutes left, but put this in context. The limits to growth argument is basically saying if we expect to have 3% economic growth every year, that means the economy doubles in size every 21 years.
That's right.
And in 40 years, it's twice as big, and then it's 4 times as big, and at 8.
That's right.
And you think, how can this happen on a small planet with limited water,
Absolutely.
limited forest, limited soil?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. And the challenge is that we still in our minds, everything is about economic growth.
Yes.
GDP, high GDP, we need to move out
But
of
you
that.
know it cannot end without the destruction of nature.
Exactly. And that means that we need to look at different models.
Right.
And things are happening.
So can the School of Environmental Studies, where you teach, set up a debate with the economics department
Oh,
and
sure.
have a debate together
Sure.
here in the Shore Studios?
Sure. You invite me.
Because that would be interesting.
Yeah, I think some people are moving though.
Yeah.
Some people, some colleagues of economics, I start realizing that we just have to start changing. So it's all changing, and in a positive way.
Well, thank you for being a leader, Ana Maria, in this field.
Thank you
and
so much for having me.
Well, my pleasure. I mean, it's quite sophisticated stuff, but it's great that we can discuss these big picture issues, right?
People need to take the economy. The economy is no machine. It's
Right.
the economy is every day. We all make the
Yeah.
economy every day.
Thank you. So my name is Guy Dauncey. It still is, as far as I know. My name's Guy Dauncey. This is the show Change the World. If you enjoy this kind of discussion and you'd like to come on the show, get in touch with my email, guydauncey@earthfuture.com. And tune in next week for more scintillating guests. And thank you for watching. Bye-bye.